Organ donation inquiries have increased since the announcement that NYPD Detective Wilbert Mora's final gift to New York was the gift of life. The 27-year-old's selfless last wish changed the lives of people desperately waiting for transplants. The nonprofit group Live On New York, who assisted in Mora's donation, said, quote, 5 people who were waiting for a heart, liver, 2 kidneys and pancreas were saved. 3 individuals in New York and 2 people outside the state of New York received life-saving organ transplants from Officer Mora. We are humbled and honored to be the steward of these gifts on behalf of Officer Mora and his family, so others may live on. The need for donors is great, and the waiting list for organs is long. Right now, there are more than 7,000 people waiting for organs in the New York metropolitan area. Most patients wait 3 to 5 years for a transplant in New York State, and every 10 minutes, a person is added to the national transplant waiting list. Joining me now is Mr. Leonard Chan, President and CEO of Live On New York. The organization is committed to helping New Yorkers share the gift of life through organ and tissue donation. Mr. Chan, welcome. Thank you again so much for your time. Tell us about the public's reaction to Detective Mora's donation.
Sure. So first, again, just sending our condolences to the family of Detective Mora. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this. The public sentiment has been increasing over the last couple of years, but you know, the public's response to this, specifically around organ donation, is immeasurable at this time. But what Detective Mora has done, not only was he a hero in life and a hero in death, and not only did he save 5 individuals' lives, but he created a movement. He created an opportunity to have a conversation that really hasn't been had before, and to debunk urban legends, to debunk myths, and to get people to finally start to understand the impact of what a single organ and tissue donor could do, not only in New York, but across the world.
And we'll talk about some of those urban myths in just a bit. I do want to ask you first, how is it decided who gets these organs, and what is the wait time like for the patients who are on the transplant list?
So, you know, the process includes, you know, us getting authorization. That could be first person in the case where somebody was already on the National Estate Registry or signed on their driver's license, or a family authorizing that, and then leading to the opportunity, the gift of life that they give, where organ procurement takes place. And the next steps after that are obviously the matching, the recovery, the preservation, and then that includes age, that includes weight, that includes the blood type, that includes a ton of medical variables. But the matching itself is done by UNOS, and that's based on also medical urgency and the distance of where the individual is on the transplant wait list.
Makes sense. All right, let's talk about the hesitancy to donate. Let's talk about some of those urban myths. I mean, there was a rumor going around that if you're an organ donor, the doctors won't try as hard to save your life. Have you run into that?
The reality is that it's not true. It's actually 2 completely different teams. Live On New York, for example, works with 100 hospitals that are donor hospitals. Those are intensivists, ICU physicians and nurses, clinicians that absolutely are trying to save that individual's life. When that process starts, that could take place anywhere in the country. Those are transplant teams that are looking at patients on the transplant wait list. And an OPO sits in the middle of that to coordinate all of the logistics and the planning, and then, as I just discussed, how the matching takes place with UNOS. So they are trying to save your life.
People are hesitant to talk about death to begin with, especially young people. Hopefully, Detective Mora's actions, his heroism, is going to spark this conversation, and people are going to be willing to start having that conversation. But have you also run into that? People just don't want to think about the end of their lives.
That's one of the biggest factors. And here's what COVID did nationally for that, globally for that. COVID allowed all of us to sense our mortality and to think about that moment, to have that fear, have those discussions with our family. I think that is breaking the ice here in a big way. And yes, his legacy and people seeing this generous gift that Detective Mora and the family have given to the community have already debunked so many of those.
Is anyone eligible to donate? Are there restrictions as far as age limits for donors?
No, actually, the oldest organ donor I think that might have just gone on record was 95. Many years ago, a Long Island woman who was 93 saved someone in their 60s with a liver transplantation that then took their grandchildren to Disney World. religion, age. None of these are restrictions when it comes to organ donation.
That's wonderful to know. You mentioned tissue donation. Talk to me about the types of donation.
The thing about organ and tissue donation saves lives. Tissue donation changes lives. So right now, your audience is probably sitting there next to someone or a neighbor, a friend, or a family member who may have a dental implant, who may be a weekend warrior or a pro athlete, somebody who tore an ACL, an Achilles, a tendon. And if those aren't artificial, where do you think those came from? So once again, this conversation doesn't generally take place. Corneal transplants, right? Cancer breast reconstruction surgery, heart valves. So this impacts in such a broader way when you start to think about the 50 to 75 lives that a single tissue donor impact.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for helping us spread this message. We know a lot of people will be reaching out to us, to you, and now hopefully they have a little bit more of a clear direction about how to move forward and to give someone else this gift of life.
We appreciate it. Thank you for the advocacy.
Thank you, Leonard. If you'd like more information about organ donation, go to our website, cbsnewyork.com.